Hey, good evening, everyone. For the gentleman in the back who just walked in, if you wouldn't mind coming in and please having a seat. We're going to begin the presentation now, and you will have plenty of time following the presentation to review the aerials and to discuss with other members of the team that are here this evening. As way of reference for everybody in the audience and those who are joining us virtually from social media, we are streaming live to the City of LaPorte Facebook platform and YouTube channel. For those of you who are joining us via social media, please be aware that we are standing by for any questions that you may have. Please submit those questions during the presentation, and we will answer them during the public Q&A following the presentation. We will announce the question aloud, and we will turn it over to the appropriate responder to conduct the answer. My name is Scott Carr. I am with Catalyst Public Affairs Group, and we are partnered to put together the public-facing portion of the LaPorte Track Project, DES 1801912, New Bridge and Roadway Reconstruction over the Tipton Street and Norfolk Southern Railroad, City of LaPorte, on August 24th, 2021. Please come on in. We're just beginning our presentation. Thank you very much. Before I dive into too much, I'd like to recognize certain individuals who have joined us this evening. First and foremost, I would like to recognize the Mayor of the City of LaPorte, Tom Dermody. Thank you, Mayor, for being here this evening with us. The residents of LaPorte are extremely lucky to have such a champion on their behalf, and thank you for being here. It means a lot. We have Jason Springer from NDOT. He is the project senior manager. Jason, thank you for being here as well. From the City of Terre Haute, we have Nick Minnick. Or from the City of LaPorte, I apologize. Nick Minnick, thank you for being here. He is the city engineer. He'll be able to answer questions as a result for the city. Additionally, this evening, on behalf of Butler, Fairman, and Seifert and USI Consulting, we have several partners on the engineering team, beginning with Greg Windling, who will be conducting your presentation this evening, Mr. Mike Mattel, who is also a project manager on this project. In addition to that, we have Brandon Arnold in the tie. He will be in the back answering questions as we move through the evening. We have Ron Francis, who is part of the acquisitions team, as well as Tom Walker and Graham Moskoski. I apologize, I'm from Indianapolis. As we move through this project this evening, there will be ample opportunity following the presentation for you to gather in the back and have conversations with the appropriate individuals that you may like to speak with, whether that is the engineering team, whether that is the acquisition team, or whether that is just a general conversation you'd like to have with the engineer of the city or whomever. Following the presentation, we will have all of that in the back half of the auditorium. So again, thank you to all of you for joining us this evening for this public information meeting. We will cover several topics this evening, including the purpose and explanation of the public meeting, our public meeting format. A sign-in table is in the back. We please request that you please participate in that and sign in so that we have your correct address and contact information. We have informational handouts for review, the proposed and need overview of the project, proposed project improvements, anticipated project schedule, right-of-way acquisition process, and submitting written public comment forms, which look like this, are in the back on the very first table, and you may place them in the box. And of course, as I have described, our open house and project display area. At this time, I will turn it over to Nick, the city engineer for the City of LaPorte, to describe a little bit about the application process.
Thank you all for coming. Really appreciate your time tonight. I know it's not always easy to get to a meeting like this in the evening, so thank you for taking the time to hear a little bit more about the project and hopefully get some understanding of the process that we've been through and are going to go through. So this project, our local Trax project, was a grant application that the city submitted in August of 2018. When we submitted the grant application, we knew that we needed to try and improve our safety situations around our rail crossings in the City of LaPorte. Currently, we have 7 at-grade crossings and then 2 grade-separated crossings. So when I say an at-grade crossing, that's your typical come up to the track, and there's gates and all of that. And then our grade separated would be the overpass and First Street. So those are the only ones in the city. Fail Road just outside of the city on the far side, and then we do have another kind of very close to the city at grade crossing, which is Orchard, but those are not necessarily in the city. So when we talk about 7 at grade and then 2 grade separated, this project we really looked at trying to improve safety. One of the issues we have, kind of a big issue we have, is the Pulaski Street crossing is actually looking at the Federal Rail Administration's ratings for safety, the worst Norfolk Southern crossing in LaPorte County. So very unsafe crossing because it's a low traffic crossing, and there are quite a few accidents or deaths even as a low volume crossing there. So we kind of started to look at where our crossings are and what might work for the city as far as trying to create a safer, more reliable location for access through the city. And we really arrived at Tipton Street as the ideal. Tipton Street has the highest average daily traffic of the 3. Detroit Street had issues with grades. Really wouldn't be very easy to put grade separation at Detroit Street. Pulaski being a low volume, we really didn't want to move something there. And then a lot of people ask about Boston, and Boston Street has seen a significant amount of investment from the city for the last 10, 15, 20 years. So Boston Street may have the highest traffic, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's not functioning well. So the improvements that the city's made at Boston Street have allowed that road to function very well, even though it is intended to remain a at-grade crossing. So we were one of 12 projects selected across the state. The grant was $6.2 million from the state. And I think it's a really great opportunity for us to start looking at our whole transportation network different and start to think about putting safety at the forefront. At-grade crossings, whether they have a history or not of being unsafe conditions, they really are. So anything we can do to alleviate that, we want to. As far as first responders, police, fire, EMS, getting across the tracks and just stopping and waiting for a train is really not an ideal situation in an emergency situation. One of the things that really kind of made this project another kind of important thing is we really have very little control over Norfolk Southern, what they do. They're going to run trains when they want. They're going to stop trains when they want. When we have emergency situations involving our existing overpass, there's almost no way through the city unless you divert all traffic to First Street or Fail Road. So we've had many situations in the city where if the current overpass had to be shut down and trains were stopped at the same time, which is not that unregular of an occurrence, then we're really cutting our community in half. So we knew we needed to do something. The local Trax program offered us an opportunity to come up with a project that I think kind of meets that purpose and need of creating a safer, more reliable north-south access. And I will also mention Tipton is a really great corridor for us. It's not a truck route. We're not intending this to be a truck route. We're not intending this to attract more heavy traffic. But it is a really important corridor between 150 north, or 150, is it east? But essentially, this corridor goes from just south of Highway 20 all the way to State Road 4. And again, not as a truck route, but as a route for people to get to their businesses, to go shopping, to come to the city of LaPorte, to get to their jobs. So this really is one of our best north-south corridors, and having this grade separated crossing is a great opportunity to just better connect our community. We had to give up some things in the process, but overall we're looking at trying to create a better connected transportation network as a whole. So I'll hand it back over to consultants, and I'll be available for questions. Thank you.
I could not have told the project history as good as Nick just did. A lot has gone into getting the project to where it is. I'm going to quickly get to the project itself. Before that, I just wanted to reiterate that one of the biggest things we can get from this meeting is the public comments. Get your input, ask the question or get the question written down, and then the project team will look at that and do our best to try to address that. That doesn't mean every comment gets answered the way you want it to be answered, but every comment will be considered and looked into as best as we can. So a little bit about the project process. The Butler Fairman USI team was selected in 2019 to help implement LaPorte's application, LaPorte's plan for this project. Started with engineering report. It started with survey. We've developed preliminary plans. We've held a field check with some of the entities and utilities. And we're here today for a public information meeting. From this public information meeting, like I said, we look at some of the comments and we continue developing the plans and the environmental document. And then we eventually get to a spot where the right-of-way process can begin, and then as that finishes up, we're getting to construction. This is a picture of the project overview. There's a lot of different legs to this project, so an overall map shows the project better than a single plan sheet. At the heart of the project is the Tipton Park Street overpass, but the project's a lot more than that as well. The city has made a few things very, very clear that were important to them, and I'll get to each one in some detail. But as you can see, the project is on Tipton and Park. It's on Washington, Brighton. It's on Furnace Street as well as Clear Lake Boulevard. Some of the highlights in text form, and then I'll kind of zoom in on the map area. The grade separation at Tipton Street is a very key component. Another key component is closing two of the at-grade crossings, Detroit and Pulaski. And then the city has made it very clear that continuing Washington-Brighton was an important aspect of this project. The final aspect that I'm going to talk about and show is how access to the Newport Landing development and the Clear Lake area, having good access is very important to the city. So as we closed Detroit Street, we made improvements to Furnace and Clear Lake to help with that access. So here's the top view is kind of a profile that shows the bridge crossing the railroad. It also, on the left side, the top left shows a large arch culvert where Washington, Brighton Street, it's being realigned to the north so that it is underneath the embankment, the fill for the railroad bridge. These next two slides are the crossings that we're closing. Detroit Street, and the next slide will be Pulaski. So really, there's going to be some signing added, some barricades added, but fairly simple process of closing that crossing. Here's Pulaski, very similar. This is the plan view of the Washington realignment. We couldn't keep Washington straight because the embankment for the Tipton Street fill material wasn't high enough. So we pushed it to the north. We pushed Washington Street to the north so that the culvert, the large culvert, fits underneath the roadway. So here's a kind of a close-up of the Furnace Street, Clear Lake Boulevard improvements. So as I indicated, as we closed Detroit Street, Nick and the city made it pretty clear that, hey, Clear Lake and Newport Landing is important to us, and access is important to us. So we are providing a left turn lane on Tipton Street onto Furnace. We're widening Furnace Street, and then we're also widening Clear Lake Boulevard so that that'll be two-way traffic from Furnace Street back towards Detroit. There won't be any change. It'll still be one-way going, I guess, north from Furnace, but south or back to the west, it'll be two-way traffic so that you have good access to Clear Lake and Newport Landing. Here's a schedule for the project. It goes back kind of to when we started surveying, began our design. We held our field check last fall. We're here today at the public information meeting. Steps moving forward, we want to wrap up the environmental document, begin begin right-of-way acquisition, continue plan development. The plan development process goes stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, and then final. So we're at stage 2, and we'll slowly be moving towards stage 3 over the next year. We've been coordinating with utilities. That starts day 1 and really goes the entire process. And as we get our plans finalized and the environmental document finalized, then the right-of-way people who are here today get their work started and hopefully completed. The end goal is to let the project, bid the project, April of 23. So that may seem like a long time from now, but there's a lot of work to do on the plans and on the utility coordination and in the right-of-way process. So that's just the schedule that a lot of projects need. At this point, I'm going to turn the mic over to Ron Francis to talk in more detail about the right-of-way process.
Good afternoon. As Greg said, I'm Ron Francis. I'm the right-of-way manager for Butler, Fairman, and Seifert, and I will be managing the right-of-way acquisition portion of this project. Let's see. Gotta see if I'm. There we go. I wanted to talk a little bit about the rules and regulations that govern right-of-way acquisition. As you can see on the slide, primarily the 5th and 14th Amendments of the Constitution govern the acquisition process, as well as Title 23 and 49 of the U.S. Code for Federal Regulations and Title 32 of the Indiana Code. Essentially, the Constitution amendments provide the government the power to acquire or take property. However, it does limit because they have to pay for it. And that's really what it does for the property owners, to make sure that we do not just take the property. You're going to get it valued, and it will be appraised and an offer made. There are three phases, really, of the right-of-way acquisition process. We have the valuation phase, the negotiation phase. Oh, I went the wrong way. I'm sorry. Like I said, the valuation phase, the negotiation phase, and the relocation phase. The valuation phase is basically we're going to have two appraisers. We have a primary appraiser and then a review appraiser. The primary appraiser is he's going to conduct an in-person interview and an inspection of your property and come up with a just compensation or a fair value, fair market value of the property. The review appraiser will ultimately review that appraiser's work and establish the final value for the property. They will meet with you in your home, sit down with you, and give you the opportunity to accompany them while they're doing the appraisal. The negotiation phase, let's see, we'll start with a written offer. The negotiator will as well come to your home, sit down with you in your kitchen table, and discuss the project with you, explain the entire acquisition process, and make sure that all of your questions are answered. And then hand in hand with that is the relocation phase. And I'd like to give our relocation agent, Joe Gramosi, to come up and give you a brief description of what you can expect for relocation. And relocation is strictly for those that we're buying the total property, and you're going to have to move. Go ahead, Joe.
I'm Joe Gramoski. I'm the relocation agent, and I'm not good at brief. I'll just tell you that. So when I meet with people, I always tell them there's two parts to this process when there's relocation involved. First, if you're a property owner, you're going to receive, as Ron said, you're going to receive compensation for the acquisition of your property. In addition to the acquisition, there are relocation benefits that are offered to basically 5 different categories. It's people who own and occupy their homes who are affected by the project, people who live in a home that is taken by the project but they rent it. Then there are businesses that are acquired by the project. There are landlords who they own the properties that are rented by the tenants, and then people who just have personal property in the way of the project. So let's say we were taking a parcel of land, but we weren't taking the home or business, we were just taking the garage in the back, then that would be another example of a relocation. So each one of those 5 situations results in a different set of additional benefits that are relocation, okay? And I'd be happy to talk more about that. If some of you are affected by the project, you're living in the project area, or you have a business in the project area, I'm happy to give you more detail after the presentation. Yeah.
I did want to reiterate, if you are affected by the project and will be relocated, please do not move until you've had a chance to meet with a relocation agent. I really would not want anyone to put any of their benefits at risk. So please make sure that the relocation agent talks to you before. If you've got any questions, make sure you see Joe this evening. In addition to that, it is really important for us to be able to get your contact information. We've got a piece of paper back in the back. If you can give us at least your name and phone number so that we can contact you when it comes time to do the appraisals and make the offers. With that, I'm going to turn it back over to Chris. He can do our question and answer period.
We have one question from social media, and they're wondering where they can find a list of the impacted properties to check to see if it's a relative or not. Where would be the appropriate place to direct them? Should we have them email? Okay, what would be, Ron, your email? Okay, would you mind coming up here and typing that or giving it to her and she'll type it into them? Thank you very much. At this point, now that we have no questions from online, we'll turn it over to questions, public questions from the audience. Now, as a reminder, following the public questions, you'll be able to engage in one-on-one questions behind us. So this portion is just for, but again, any questions or any feedback you'd like to provide is why we're here this evening. So at this time, I'll turn it over. Are there any public questions from the audience? Yes, sir. 1 second.
What is going to happen to the scrapyard?
The question is, what is going to happen to the scrap yard?
Are they going to be completely bought out, or are they going to have part of it cut off? Furnace runs straight parallel to the one part of the yard, and the other part of the yard runs parallel to the north, and southern railroad.
Thank you for your question, sir. Greg here will answer that question.
So, as our plans currently show, the vertical grade of Tipton Street affected the entrance that they have and the scale, the area where the scale is. And then also the slopes from the embankment get into the building. So, as proposed, that is a relocation. Yes, it
Additional questions? Yes, sir. I just want to repeat it for those at home. Yeah. The question is, why are we closing 2 additional crossings that will create a funnel, including closing Detroit Street? Is that correct, sir?
Yeah.
Greg?
The NDOT Trax program is overall railroad safety, and overall railroad safety includes removals and improvements. And by doing what we're doing, we're more or less improving and making 3 locations safer, and increasing the capacity at Tipton Street to handle that traffic.
But you're not really increasing safety, you're just closing it. I've lived on Pulaski and Furnace for 15 years, and there's never been a train or a car hit by a vehicle on my crossing. So I'm just kind of curious, because I use that crossing all the time, and now you're going to totally shut it down and turn it to a dead-end road and force me to go use a different way. And then I can't even go around Clear Lake Boulevard to get around Detroit Street. So I just don't understand why you're closing 2 crossings and forcing everybody and increasing traffic on a bridge now, so your traffic's going to be worse.
All at-grade railroad crossings have safety concerns, whether there's an accident history or not. An at-grade crossing is a safety concern.
Says who? I mean, where's the proof in this?
I don't know what proof you're looking for, but
Proof of how it's unsafe.
in general, all at-grade crossings are safety concerns. And
So is any street crossing. So is any stoplight, any stop sign. So is this, you guys just make it up? Is that, I mean, I don't understand. There's no at risk when there's never been an accident in the 15 years that I've lived there of it being unsafe.
as part of the application, the crossing removals are a part of that application in order to get the improvements at Tipton. I am not privy to the very early history of that, but that is where we got today. I see Nick coming up. Maybe he's got something.
Because wouldn't it be better if they just make it a quiet zone and put the cones across there, so then we don't got to listen to the horns and still be able to use it?
Yeah. So as I mentioned before, when we developed this project, we looked at the actual FRA safety rating for each crossing, and we identified Pulaski actually is, like I said, the most dangerous crossing in LaPorte County for Norfolk Southern.
How?
Because based on accidents and traffic counts. So accidents and traffic counts at that street reported, whether you experience them or not, reported accidents and traffic counts at that street make it a very dangerous crossing. This wasn't the first time the city had looked at closing Pulaski. When they closed Perry Street, they were also looking at closing Pulaski. So this isn't a new thing. But in order to get a better system and in order to get a safer, more reliable system, we have to give a little bit. And really, the overall goal is safety. So safety and hopefully there's some convenience added to that. I understand that you're having to go an extra block over to an overpass instead of an at-grade crossing
And get
near your
funneled
home.
and get caught up in all the traffic that's going to be on that bridge now, as opposed to being able to go a different way and have the option to go a different way.
Yeah. So options are important in transportation. Being able to go a route that you're comfortable with is important. I think we've done some other planning in addition to this. The adopted Heart of LaPorte plan, which was adopted by the City Council, calls for a Lake Street extension. So essentially a street that parallels the north side of the tracks connecting into Clear Lake Boulevard. So that street would connect more or less from Tipton at Furnace Street all the way, you can continue on Lake Street and then all the way over basically to the next underpass or jog over to First Street. So we're looking at these connectivity issues and we understand that for some people it's going to be inconvenient to go a block or two extra, but at the same time what we're doing is we're providing an opportunity for a safer crossing. A grade separated crossing is by far the safest crossing you have. And there will be some additional traffic on it because you're funneling a street that has very low traffic volumes, probably somewhere under 500 vehicles a day, and a street that's right around 1,000 vehicles a day into a street that currently has about 3,000. So you're not looking at necessarily even doubling the traffic, but you are looking at having some increased traffic because you're shifting them to one safer crossing instead of having 3 crossings with potential of train-car conflicts or pedestrian-train conflicts. So I understand that there's a lot of frustration with the portion of this that involves closing crossings, but when we look at our overall transportation network and we try and create the safest, most accessible network and hopefully convenient, I understand that there are people that will be impacted in ways that it's slightly less convenient, but we are trying to create a whole network that creates those options, but also provides for the safest access across the railroad tracks, which are a significant safety barrier within our community.
Okay, so the only way you're going to get onto the bridge is coming off of Lincoln Way? What about?
No.
So that they can hear it online.
No. The question was, the only way you're going to get onto the bridge, and I'm assuming from the south, is off of Lincoln Way. No. So
That's-
the bridge ends at State Street, so you can access the bridge from State Street, or you could access the bridge via Tipton Street from Lincoln Way.
So that's going to increase traffic on State Street?
We don't have a traffic model that's going to show whether it's going to increase or decrease the traffic on State Street, but Washington Street is a through street still, so that isn't changing. The Washington and Brighton Street continues to be a through street, so traffic that's going east-west will continue to use that without any issue. Traffic that wants to make that turn to go north would move to State Street if they're not already on Lincoln Way. So there could be an increase in traffic on State Street, but we're not necessarily looking at significant increases in that traffic specifically. I think the majority of traffic comes off of Lincoln Way when heading north at that location.
So if you're going east on State Street, you can turn left to go over the bridge. Are you going to be able to turn right to go to Lincoln Way?
The question was, if you are going east on State Street, can you both turn left to go over the bridge or right to go to Lincoln Way? And yes, there will be no changes in how that intersection functions. It'll just be a bridge north of there in order to get over the tracks. And the bridge, just so if the picture wasn't clear, the bridge starts at essentially starts at State and ends at Furnace. So the project limits are really State to Furnace. So and then Washington Street is realigned underneath the bridge at a point where it's high enough that we can get vehicles under the bridge. So we're not, I think a lot of people look at, I think I mentioned our overpass in downtown, and you see from Newport Boulevard to Indiana Ave, and there's, a railroad track and two roads and a drive lane and all these things and a rail yard all underneath our overpass. That's not what we're doing here. This is not another mega overpass over everything. This is about providing safer access for this area. This is a local project for local people. This is for passenger vehicles more so than trucks or anything like that. This is about making sure that people can get to and from their homes, to their jobs, to shopping, to wherever they need to be. And it is not the same scale that you see. And I think a lot of people kind of have a fear that it's the same scale they see at Indiana Ave turning into Pine Lake Ave. That's not the case here. So what we're looking at is a fairly simple overpass, again, starting at State Street, Washington Street being realigned so it goes under the overpass, and then ending at Furnace Street.
Is it starting at the north side of State and Tipton or the south side of State and Tipton?
The question was, does it start at the north side of State and Tipton or the south side? And it is the north side. So the approach starts at the north side. So you don't have to get onto a bridge in order to get onto Tipton Street.
Is Park Street going to be no parking?
No, Park Street is not going to be no parking.
As far as that street right now, it's busy because people live there.
I failed to mention this, and I really should have from the get-go. We have a separate grant through INDOT, so it's another federal grant, so it's 80/20, and that's for the reconstruction of Park Street. We're intending to have this project kind of coincide so that the headaches of construction are minimized. So whether it be slightly before or after, or however it is, in order to have the maintenance of traffic really function well. We do have a separate project that's right around $1 million, and that is reconstruction of Park Street from the end of this bridge, which is at Furnace, to north of McClung, and that project will be including intersection improvements at McClung, Bach, and Park Street, because that's a very
roundabout.
It's a difficult. Right now they're proposing that, but we're not that far in design, so.
Yeah, I'll take it.
I think one of the $1 questions at the moment is what happens to the property values of the people in the area.
Sure. Yeah. I don't know. I can't project property values. I know that we've had some people making investment in the area, knowing the project is coming, because they see the value in having that access across the tracks there, and see the value in a few extra vehicles when they're right on the street. I really don't foresee a negative as far as property value, because we're providing a safer access point over the railroad tracks, something that if you are in close proximity is hopefully more convenient. And then with the reconstruction and kind of redoing all of Park Street to clean up the sidewalks and put in new trees and put in better infrastructure, we're hoping that continues to spur community investment, and we continue to see people investing and making their properties the best condition they can for that stretch there. So we hope that this actually spurs investment and we actually see increases in property values. We would never want to purposely do a project that would decrease property values.
Yeah, we hope it goes as planned, but if it doesn't,
Yeah. Well,
where are we sitting? You
Yeah,
know?
I'd be surprised if this project specifically caused decreased property values. So. But again, I don't project property values. That's not what I do for a living.
So on Tipton and Furnace, when you're going east on where that lake, that road up from the lake, it's always been very bad and very busy and very hard to see because as you're going up from the lake, it's a really aggressive grade.
Yeah.
And so are they going to put a four-way stop on there, or is it going to be like a northbound doesn't stop?
Westbound stop. Yeah. Furnace is the stop condition. So stop going onto Furnace. So you would stop and then either make a left-hand turn or through traffic would continue on.
Okay.
Everything is widening out in there. So ideally visibility is improved. Right now there's a kind of a channelizing section, so that would need to be changed in order to have that left-hand turn there. So that intersection will have improvements as part of this project to create safe access onto Clear Lake Boulevard off of Furnace. Through traffic. Right, like it is now, yes.
Yeah.
The question was, is it going to be a four-way stop? When we looked at traffic projections and putting in the application, we looked at the potential of needing to have a stop condition or a signal or a stop or something like that. The traffic projections didn't warrant it. So this project does not include a stop condition at Furnace Street, so it would continue as it is where Tipton Street turns into Park and keeps going, and then Furnace would have a stop at both sides of it. So that wouldn't change.
I have two questions, Nick.
Yeah.
Both of them are follow-up questions to the ones you just answered. You've talked a lot about safety. How many people have been hurt or injured or killed on Detroit or Pulaski in the last 50 years?
I don't have the numbers in front of me.
But you're saying it's a safety issue.
Correct.
So you're not going to have a stop sign, or you're going to have a stop sign on Furnace Street, but it's not going to be a stop sign on Park, correct?
Yeah, so what?
So wait, let me ask a couple more. Are you going to have a stoplight or a stop sign for entrance onto the bridge at State Street?
So the question was...
well, here's my issue. You're going to bring two more streets traffic to the bridge.
It's important that I'm able to repeat the questions in order to respond to them.
Well, my question is, if you're going to add more traffic to Tipton and Park that has to join at Furnace and State, but you have no controlled access, or to me, the risk is going to be greater to have an accident in those two intersections without any control. That's your guys' decision to do. All I'm pointing out is you can't tell me how many people have been hurt or injured on Detroit or Pulaski, but you're also creating a risk situation just by doing this project. Next question is, there are 6 businesses on Detroit and Linwood. There's 3 property owners. You're closing the street. You don't think that's going to affect the value of the property of those businesses that are there?
Again, I don't project property values.
I'm asking your opinion, sir. You're the guy that engineered this.
All right, thank you. In my opinion, I don't think we're going to see a significant decrease in property values. The investment that the city has been putting in throughout that area has been significant, and we continue to see a lot of interest in those areas, which would mean that property values are staying strong. If we had no interest in outside developers doing work in or around the Clear Lake area.
I'm more
then-
concerned about creating an area where you decrease the property values because of whatever reason for not having access to places. I'm wondering if you're going to compensate people for that. You know, are you going to compensate people that have to drive an extra block? Are you going to compensate people that take a risk every day getting onto these streets? You've made an issue that it's a safety thing, but to me, you can't tell me how many people have been hurt at these crossings, but you're creating a situation where there's more danger.
Yeah, and I apologize. I can't tell you because I don't have that information in front of me. It wasn't part of this presentation. I can go to the FRA website and get that data for you. So,
Don't you think that would have been an important thing when you were deciding whether it's safe or not?
The purpose of the meeting.
I understand, and I'm not trying to be confrontational, but it does bother me a little bit that this was, and for sure, we're not going to stop Detroit Street closing. I already get it. I'm more concerned about what you're going to do to the property values and create the situation where 50 years from now, somebody's going to kick themselves in the butt for closing Detroit Street. Why are you giving up logistics and infrastructure when I don't really, and nobody has ever given me a good answer why, even you now. You haven't given me a good answer other than you keep striving on safety, but there hasn't been any issues there. Why are you giving it up? That's really my biggest question, and I'll let you go now.
Yeah, and why are we giving up? One more thing I want to add is, in talking about property values along that stretch, as I mentioned before, as part of our Heart of LaPorte plan, which is adopted, so we try and implement those projects, we are trying to create an east-west corridor north of the tracks, which we have never had. With the addition, with the work we've done in Newport Landing and different things, we're starting to get to a point where we can have an additional east-west connection north of the tracks, which brings activity and movement along that corridor, and also in turn hopefully help stabilize and maintain property values in that area, because property values are really based on what somebody's willing to purchase a property for, and people want to purchase properties if it's in a commercial setting where there's good access and there's people to get to their commercial establishment in most cases. So in my opinion, I don't see a significant change in property values. If anything, I would think that we would probably see an increase in property values over time. And then back to the point of why are we giving this up, I would also add, this was the city's first opportunity to have a grade separated crossing in a very, very, very long time. We have not seen grade separation in the city of LaPorte since the overpass. This is a new opportunity for us. It doesn't mean we're giving up Detroit Street. It doesn't mean we're giving up Pulaski Street. It means we're giving up at-grade crossings at those locations. And that doesn't mean that in the future we can't do something different with those right-of-ways if it's warranted, if the funds are available, if property values are increasing and we need additional north-south connection, then we can figure out a way to do that. But what we're talking about is consolidating 3 crossings to create a safer condition that's more reliable. So it is a safety issue, even if there aren't memorable accidents at those intersections, and I can get you those numbers, and we can make sure that that's available. Yes.
I have concerns also with the traffic flow. I come down State Street 5 days a week from work, turn left on Tipton. Okay, you got the stoplight a block away. Cars are coming from Thomas Rose Industrial Park. Right now, they've got Pulaski Street, Larson, and Park. Mm-hmm. Okay, so now you are taking away Pulaski Street in that area. I have to sit through 2 lights sometimes in order to turn left now. If they're able to go over the bridge instead of waiting for that train, they're going to be coming down that bridge. I'm never going to get turned if there's not a stoplight, but then there's a stoplight a block away.
Yeah. So
what's going to happen there?
Yeah. So again, when we looked at the initial application, we used Patrick Engineering, which is a very reputable firm that really focuses on kind of rail and transportation in general. And they did look at the numbers and looked at whether or not signals were warranted at both ends of the overpass. And based on traffic projections they didn't see those being warranted at this time. It doesn't mean that in the future, if we have traffic situations where those signals are now warranted, we can't add them. But the current traffic volumes and what we see in the near-term projections, we don't see the need for signals at either end of the overpass. Again, we'll continue to watch that. We'll continue to keep traffic counts. That's done by NERPC, our Metropolitan Planning Organization. They keep a pretty good record of traffic counts. So we will have that data, and we'll be able to continue to look at that situation, and we'll take input from residents and business owners and people working downtown, and when there's an issue, we'll do our best to try and make sure we make the adjustments. But based on what we've looked at so far, we don't necessarily see the massive jump in traffic that's going to warrant some additional stop situation conditions either north or south of the bridge.
Well, because right now, all they have is the overpass, and it gets to be a zoo. If the trains are stopped, you can't go a certain way on Clear Lake Boulevard, and everybody's doing U-turns in the middle of the street. And if they get this bridge that's going to be able to go over, which I think is a good idea, but I don't know how the traffic flow is going to be, and you're going to end up with 2 stoplights, I'll bet, within a block away from each other, which is going to make it worse.
Yeah, and again, right now, it does not warrant a stop. So based on what we have projected, it doesn't warrant a stop. But that is something that we can review as if traffic is drawn to it in that way. But that's not what we see yet.
Okay.
So there will still be a stop sign on State Street, east to west, correct?
Correct.
Well, nobody stops at them right now. What's the big deal? Who's going to stop at them later?
And whether or not people stop at stop signs, that's more of a enforcement issue in a lot of cases, not something we could address with this project specifically.
And Madison Street crossing has had the most accidents, I bet, of any railroad crossing in LaPorte, and it's still open.
Yeah, and again, all those numbers are recorded, and the Federal Rail Administration keeps those. So when we looked at the safety of each crossing kind of in that corridor, we identified Pulaski being the worst, and then kind of the other two, Detroit not being the worst of the 3 either. So we looked at that and evaluated. There's really no reason to make a significant change to Madison at this point, other than trying to make safety improvements in coordination with Norfolk Southern. Because you're under an overpass, so you always have the option of doing the overpass. I know our city planner's been working on trying to look into how do we have safer pedestrian access at Madison, because that's a pretty big issue we have there too. So these are all things we're looking at, and the questions are great because it is something that we'll continue to review and make sure that we're, like I said, trying to provide the highest quality transportation network we can for the community.
I know they've had the counting, the strip, whatever it is, where it counts how many vehicles on Detroit Street. I'd like to know the numbers compared to.
Yeah,
the numbers. I know Pulaski Street is way down, but a lot of people use Detroit instead of using Park Street.
Yeah, so traffic counts over the last 5 to 10 years at Detroit Street, in the last year they've jumped up quite a bit. They were hovering right around 1,000 vehicles a day, and then in 2020 they jumped up to right around 1,200 vehicles a day. So we're looking at 1,200 vehicles a day. Tipton is generally right around 3,000 vehicles a day. Pulaski isn't measured because it's low volume, so the assumption is it's well under or at somewhere under 500 vehicles a day. And then when you get to Boston Street, that tends to fluctuate between 6,000 and 7,000 vehicles a day. So that's kind of where our traffic counts are in that corridor.
How many people go on Madison?
I don't have Madison because again, we're kind of looking at the Detroit to Boston Street with this project, not really assuming that this has a significant transportation effect on what's going on at Madison. And again, I'll be available for questions in the back. I know, I mean, everybody else just has to kind of wait, but I'll be available, so we can hopefully soon move on to that next phase of the evening.
One last question. You said that Spectrum will be bought out. It won't be anymore. Do you have any idea, will they go down and take the property where American Rubber is located? I heard they bought that property.
Yeah, so that's a good question. I think that question is more one to answer by the business. And the other thing I think I'll mention is that you know, we talked a lot about the right-of-way acquisition process, and I think there's opportunities to use that process. This is all state dollars, so we also have the opportunity to look at paying a little more attention to our local businesses and trying to ensure that they're taken care of. I love Spectrum Recycling. Spectrum Recycling has done a lot of great things for the city. Them being in that location has been really amazing for any demolition project or anything like that. They take our steel. It keeps our costs down. We appreciate Spectrum and want to make sure that they're a part of our community. So we want to work with them and figure out what the right location, what the right fix is. But as part of this project, we are anticipating relocating Spectrum.
Thank you very much for all of your questions and for your comments. We have many more that are online, and I'd like to share them with everyone as well, too, and give them an opportunity to be heard and to receive an answer. We have, on average, 35 individuals that have been tuning in socially. Our first question comes from Rosie Emmerich. What about McRoy's and Shooter's Taverns? No impact, Rosie. The following is a comment from Nancy. Isn't the railroad going to maintain the bridge providing you close those two crossings? No. From Jeff Miller, a follow-up on the safety question that we received earlier from the individual in the back with the gray t-shirt. This individual also had a second follow-up question, Mr. Jeff Miller. We were told Detroit was going to be left open. That street is used by many to bypass the overpass. It will be forced now we will now be forced to go downtown and will increase downtown gridlock.
I'm not aware of any meeting where we said Detroit State would stay open.
Nick Middick.
Yeah, I'm not aware of any specific meeting or anything where we said Detroit Street would specifically stay open. When we put in our application, we put in an application that include closing Detroit Street. We then had kind of our proposal vetted by INDOT and vetted by INDOT's consultants, and what you see is what we've come up with. So during that phase between when we submitted our application and the project was accepted, we didn't know 100% what the end project was going to be, but we now have a very, very good picture of what we anticipate that end project being, and Detroit Street closure is part of that. And again, that closure will have to go through the City Council, be by resolution of the City Council.
Thank you, Nick. There is a little back and forth between Nick and Jeff on here, which I will not share publicly. The next comment comes from Nate Lokes. As someone with multiple projects and facilities in the area, State Street Community Church, the PAC Center, and the Brighton Street Green Space, we support anything that takes down train noise and allows for more transfer over the tracks without getting stopped by a train. Less train noise from fewer crossings is a good thing. IMO, which stands for in my opinion.
And I would mention this project has nothing directly to do with the city's interest in a quiet zone, but quiet zone would require improvements at intersections at grade intersections, and this would actually reduce the cost for the city to move forward with a quiet zone significantly. So.
Well, you must be a mind reader because the following questions were about the quiet zone. Nancy asks, will there be a quiet zone, which I believe you just answered.
And again, that's a completely separate process that I think in the past we've engaged a consultant to start moving forward, but we haven't been pursuing it kind of in the last few months, but I think it's something that we'll continue to look at.
From Catherine, how about semi-traffic that goes down Indiana Avenue? They fly down that road and all the brake jacking, ...
I really don't anticipate this to be an Indiana Avenue. So it's not a state highway, it's still a local road, it's still a local street. We still have the ability as the municipality to put whatever enforcement we want on the street. So we are not creating a Indiana Avenue, which is Highway 35. So we're not creating a new highway. It is a local street.
The following comments are between David and Nate. They sort of go back and forth discussing quiet zone Detroit Street in their own opinions on how they would or would not like to be stopped by 100 trains a day. Next comes to Rosie Emmerich. Park Street has parking on one side of the road. Now that it makes it a very narrow area to get through at times. With that much additional traffic, they need to take parking off the road and have driveways in the yards.
Yeah, so, and this is a separate project, a separate DES number, separate funding, but that project is actually looking at creating protected parking lanes, so having dedicated areas for parking on the same side of the street, but having kind of bump outs at intersections and in other locations, say driveways, other things, in order to make sure that the parking along there is protected. So the width of the road will still be more than sufficient for the traffic, but then, you know, there'll be additional protection for those who need to park on that street. There's limited opportunity to have enough driveway parking on that street for the residences in that area.
Thank you. From Keith, who will pay for the maintenance for this new overpass?
So the overpass, when it is complete, becomes a county bridge. Every bridge in the county is owned by the county, with the exception of NDOT's bridges or railroad bridges. So this will become a county bridge. Maintenance and other things for this bridge is funded through kind of a pot of money set aside for county bridges. So the county gets specific funding for bridge maintenance annually from the state.
Just a few more questions. Will there be two-way traffic on the south side of Clear Lake, then off the overpass, to be able to get into NPL on the side of the lake off the overpass? From Jeff Miller.
Yes. So we will have two-way traffic from Furnace Street along Clear Lake Boulevard. And again, like I mentioned, you know, our intent is to move forward with Lake Street extension. So we'll have a two-way route on the north side of the tracks, hopefully kind of spanning the downtown area.
From Ty Miller, there are enough pathways to there are not enough pathways to cross the train tracks. This will be helpful for our city. And just a point of clarification, does it sound like there will be widening on Park Street or not?
No, the intention is not to widen Park Street, but to keep the same travel lane width, but then better protect and kind of bump out the areas to provide safe parking.
Thank you. Those are all of the questions that were posted in comments that were provided online this evening. At this time, we will now proceed to the next phase of our meeting this evening. For any individuals who have additional questions or would like to speak one-on-one with land acquisition or right-of-way issues or with the engineers or to review any renderings, they will all be provided in the back. We thank you for coming this evening. We thank you for your comments and we thank you for your questions. There are additional comment cards in the back as well too that you may fill out and leave in the box. They will be addressed and we will respond. Thank you.